This is a third in a series of recordings that Dave Kingsley and myself, Kent Comfort, have shared regarding the impact of the religious right on our government. Dave, I have a question for you. Are we still, would you still consider us a secular nation as the founding fathers intended and envisioned, or have we lost our way where that's concerned?
Well, you know, Kim, theoretically and abstractly, we still are a country that is guided by the First Amendment, which is Congress or government shall establish no religion. However, realistically, we're beginning to see that eroded through various policy decisions that are being made below the radar, so to speak, such as, let's take 1996, a law was passed that allowed for block grants to states for welfare, substance abuse, and so forth to be awarded to faith-based, so-called faith-based organizations. Well, that basically means church organizations. So now we have federal dollars flowing into church organizations. And we've talked about the science standards, for instance, in the state of Kansas. We had a big fight over evolution back in the early 2000s. There was a compromise. The compromise was, well, we just won't use the word evolution. We won't use the word Darwin. We won't even mention Charles Darwin, who's really a big deal in the biological sciences. Let's face it, that's a unifying theory of biology. It's no longer in the science standards. It does mention mutations and DNA and so forth, but that was a victory for the Christian nationalists who really want to impose their views on us, Ken.
Dave, I think we should go a little deeper in the definition of the Christian nationalists. But before that, it seems to me this erosion has been kind of below the radar and has encountered very little resistance. What would be your thoughts about how that managed to happen?
I think that's absolutely right, Ken. I think it's because people are unaware of the importance of secular and church and state, the separation of church and state. So we just sort of, well, it's no big deal. Okay, we got the science standards. I talked to a state board member the other day, and he said, oh, yeah, that's all been resolved. We got that state, you know, there's no problem. We do have evolution in there, but it just doesn't say evolution. You know, people are taking that with a rather blasé view, but, you know, the old camel's nose under the tent.
Yeah.
It's progress, and people don't really understand, Kent. And I think that's why we do these videos, is to begin to say this is getting to a point where a lot of your life could be decided by what religious views are in government.
Excellent point. Well stated too. Back to the Christian nationalist idea. Break that down for us a little bit, if you would, because that's a term that isn't very commonly seen in the media yet, but perhaps with the right people working on this issue, that will change.
Good point, Kim. And I think we do need to use that term and let people know what that means. Basically, Christian nationalism is a movement of evangelical Christians, and their belief is that we are a Christian nation. We're not a secular nation. That the framers of the Constitution intended for this nation to be governed based on Christianity. Therefore, we're trying to rewrite history, that what the framers really intended. So that is the first principle. And so they're trying to get into our government more and more religious view in terms of how we make policy. And therefore, we go back to funneling more money to religious organizations, changing history, changing science, governing according to their principles. Catherine Stewart has written a very good book on this entitled The Power Worshippers. So what they want is government power. And that's why we call it Christian nationalism, because they're trying to seep their religion into government.
Thank you for referencing that book. I think that might be helpful to our listeners to check that out. I think this is a good place to sort of put a pin in it, Dave. We've covered some very important concerns. I think thinking people, if they start realizing how this Christian nationalist movement is gaining momentum quietly, they're going to take pause and they're going to start asking questions. And that's what we hope to see is more awareness of this for people asking the question, is this really the direction we want to go? I'm betting most people will say, nope, that wasn't what was intended. And this could not end well if it continued. So thanks a lot, Dave, for your thoughts. They're always well regarded and well presented. So appreciate your time.
Likewise, Kent, appreciate your intelligent, insightful questions and thoughts. And I think as we go forward, we will be able to increase awareness of what reality is right now about this whole movement.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kent.